Kristen, and I'm here with Dr. Brown today, and we're talking about allergies. So, Dr. Brown, what exactly is an allergy?
Well, that's a good question because we hear that term thrown around all the time, but basically it's really simple. An allergy is an inappropriate immune response. So, in other words, the immune system is reacting to something that it should not normally react to. So, you can get symptoms with allergies that are very similar to symptoms of a cold. But in the case of a cold, the body's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The immune system is being activated in order to fight off the virus. With allergies, maybe you have an allergy to mountain cedar, for instance, the body's making an immune response, but it shouldn't. And so you end up with all of those symptoms, but there's not a virus or bacteria or something attacking the body. The body's simply making an immune response to something that it shouldn't.
Okay, so I know for me in my house, some of my kids have a lot of allergies, and the others don't really have any. Can you kind of explain why some of us get allergies and some of us don't?
Well, there's some simple things and then there's some more complicated things. But basically, one of the underlying issues with sensitivity to airborne allergens, pollens, dust, that type of thing, is actually undiagnosed food allergies. And so when someone, let's say, has a gluten sensitivity, if they're eating gluten and haven't been made aware of it, then their immune system is already in a pro-inflammatory state, and so it's much more reactive to anything else that comes along. And so by following the basic diet, which we covered a couple months ago, you can help to reduce airborne allergies as well.
Okay, so in the allergens that Dr. Brown recommends on his diet would be wheat, corn, soy, and let's see if I can think. Wheat, corn, soy, and dairy. Cow dairy. Okay, I'm having my little test here. So that's why you recommend, that's one of the reasons.
That's one of the reasons why I recommend avoiding those more inflammatory foods. Not that everyone has an allergy to them, but even so, they are pro-inflammatory. And if we can keep inflammation under control, then we can reduce the immune system's reaction to other airborne pollens.
Okay, can you kind of explain inflammation in the body and you were saying that it also, obviously it affects how we, our reaction to pollens and stuff, but are there other reasons why we don't want to have inflammation in our body?
Well, that's a very good question. Inflammation is the number one, what we call modifiable risk factor to aging. So in other words, when your body's in a pro-inflammatory state, you're going to deposit more plaque in the arteries. You're more likely to have a heart attack or a stroke or to develop a neurodegenerative condition. All sorts of problems that are associated with aging, but really more associated with inflammation. And so by modulating inflammation, not only can you improve the body's ability or reaction to certain airborne pollens, but you can improve the way you age as well.
Okay, so back to allergies. We talked about how food allergies are an underlying issue to having maybe airborne allergies. Are there other underlying issues possibly in our bodies and how we react and everything?
Absolutely, because it all goes back to how is your body functioning that determines how your body is going to react in any given situation. And so there are some other factors involved. For instance, the adrenal glands play a huge role in how the body responds to an allergen. For instance, if you were to have an acute, serious allergic response and end up going to the emergency room, what are they typically going to do? One thing, they'll probably give you epinephrine, which is actually adrenaline. It's made in the adrenal glands. So if your adrenal glands are functioning properly, they'll make enough of the epinephrine on their own, you won't need it. The other thing they're going to do is prescribe some type of corticosteroid, which again is made in the adrenal cortex. It's your body's natural kind of anti-inflammatory. So if your adrenal glands are functioning correctly, you're not going to need those things. Unless it's, some sort of severe emergency, but even then, the chances of developing a severe emergency, if your adrenal glands are working properly, are much, much less.
Okay, so you've told us what allergies are and why we might be getting allergies, and so that leads me to say, well, what do we do about it?
Well, so...
If our adrenals are not working correctly
or
whatever.
Right, so everything that we've talked about up to this point, eating right, getting more sleep, getting the right types of exercise in the appropriate amounts, all help with adrenal gland function. simply not stressing out about things. One of the biggest problems that we have in our modern society is we're all stressed out. Yeah. And most of it is not for legitimate reasons. It's mental stress, things that we create for ourselves. So for instance, the adrenal glands are the body's stress glands. And they're designed to respond to a stressful situation, whatever it is. So for instance, if you're walking through the neighborhood and a dog starts chasing you, you need to run to get away from that dog. So the adrenal glands secrete adrenaline, which basically, closes off, shuts down the digestive system to a degree, and, shunts the blood to the muscles so that you can run and get away from the dog. You get that kind of instant burst of energy. The problem is, most of the time, we're not running away from a dog. And when you are, once you're away from the dog, you can calm down and relax and everything goes back to normal and it's fine. But most of us are running from an imaginary dog that never goes away.
All the time.
And so we're constantly stressed out. Our adrenals are constantly, overworked, making adrenaline and cortisol and those stress hormones that eventually they start to lose function. They're not able to maintain those high levels of stress hormone outputs for an extended period of time. They were never designed to do that. They were designed for a short-term response, and the problem is because we worry about everything, it becomes a long-term response. And so just, controlling the mental stress becomes a huge factor in helping adrenal gland function.
So we've talked about all the body systems that may have been affected and make us more susceptible to allergies, but what about the air? Like, what about the air quality? Does that play a role?
Air quality does play a role, and in places where there are higher pollen counts, that certainly creates more allergy problems, especially for people who have deficiencies in the adrenal glands or digestive function, and maybe they're eating a diet that's not ideal for them. They're going to have even more allergens, or a worse time with allergies because of the amounts of pollen in the air. So it is important to try to reduce the exposure to pollen as well.
Okay. What specifically, is there something that we can do to kind of lower the pollen count if we are in a high pollen area?
Well, you can't do anything about the outdoors, but
Right.
you can do a lot about the indoors.
Okay.
And so some things you can do, first of all, if you've never had your air ducts cleaned, it's a good idea to have them cleaned out. Because, you can get buildup of dust and molds and pollen in the air ducts. And so there are a number of companies that will come and clean those out, and that's good to do if you've never had it done. In addition to that, having the carpets cleaned at least once a year, because, all that dust and pollens will settle into your carpet. And so you want to make sure that they stay clean. Dusting the house, ideally once a week, because again, those pollens can settle on hard surfaces, and that increases the amount that you're breathing. So all of those things can be helpful, but probably the single biggest thing that you can do at home is to install a high quality allergen filter in your HVAC unit.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't even know that was available. Okay. So say I have susceptibility to allergies. I'm in a place with a high pollen count, and I come down with what I think's a cold, but I don't respond to the immune support system the way that I should be.
Right, because it's not designed for allergies.
Right.
It's designed to support the immune system's response to an upper respiratory virus or something along those lines.
Right. So say I don't respond to the immune support system, and we haven't come out with our allergy kit yet, which hopefully one day we'll have that. But what do I do? Is there something that, can you give me some key pointers to do?
There are some basic things that you can pick up at your local health food store that can be helpful. For instance, some people, when they develop allergies, they have a lot of excess mucus production. And so the herb fenugreek is excellent for helping to break up mucus and so you can clear it out of the body. So that's one thing you can do. The herb stinging nettles has been used for a long time, for at least hundreds of years, to help decrease the symptoms of allergies. Also, vitamin C with bioflavonoids. Now, preferably a vitamin C that's not derived from corn.
Right, because we talked about how
as
corn affects the body.
Vitamin C with bioflavonoids, because it reduces the inflammation. And so those are some natural things that you can do. But one of the most important things is just to keep the nasal passages washed out. So some people like to do, some type of sinus cleanse, like a neti pot, and that's great. But that can be a little difficult to do. Sometimes I've done it. Sometimes it kind of feels like you're drowning. It's
Yeah.
not pleasant to do, but it's highly effective. But what an easier way to do that is just get some saline nasal spray and use it throughout the day, and it helps to keep the pollen cleaned out of the nasal passages, and it dramatically improves symptoms.
All right, great. Well, that's simple enough. Well, I think that we covered everything that we wanted to cover with allergies. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Well, the only thing I would add is that there are alternatives to allergy shots. There are specific homeopathics that can be given orally, which help to desensitize the body's reaction to a particular pollen. And that's best administered by a natural healthcare practitioner, but sometimes you can find things like that in your health food store as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for
You're
taking a
welcome.
little time and explaining a little bit more about allergies. I know this is kind of the season for that. So please, if you're watching this and you have questions, just leave a comment on the blog or send me a Facebook message or however you want to do it, and I will try to get the answer from the source because I only have my little limited knowledge. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and I hope that you come back next time. Thanks.